Salutations, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. V back with another casted game of Age of Empires 3, and we have finally done it. After over 2 months of absence, we have found a high-level Dutch game. Way too long of a wait. Absolutely unacceptable.
Shameful display!
The lack of Dutch. So here we are with a bit of a mystery player, but let's get into our civilization intros on the eastern half of the map, playing in the color blue as the Hallowed Dutch, my favorite civilization. We have Bob Enjoyer, who, as far as I'm aware, is a bit of a mystery player. I don't think his identity has been found out or 100% confirmed. Might be an old legacy player, might be one of our current top players just doing a little bit of smurfing. But he is picking up the 70 wood, and he's been playing almost only Dutch, a man after my own heart. And he's been doing very well, and he's certainly going to be up against stiff competition because for the second game in a row in the western half of the map, playing in the color red as the Aztec, we have the one and only Kanisi. And I love featuring Kanisi. I love his play style. I love the versatility that he can show. And I love his Aztec. Very good. So if Bob can beat this Aztec as Dutch, we will know that he is the real deal. So let's get started. Anyways, picking up that 70 wood is Dutch. Going to be great for his first bank, though he did lose a lot of XP to those tigers. They are such a stubborn treasure guardian. They have such a fast attack, and they have such a high attack, whereas these panthers are a little less dangerous. But in comes the war chief, and he has the eagle scout, and he has the warrior priest. Let's see, is he at least going to pick up the treasure? He is! So Bob Enjoyer with his explorer Peter Brunel is going to get the 75 food along with the 70 wood, so a very productive age 1 for Dutch, but he is going to lose that explorer as well. 45, no, 90 XP for Kanisi. I always forget about that Aztec buff. Absolute insanity. 90 XP, that's so good for Aztec early in the game. But let's take a look at Kanisi's deck. Pretty standard for Kanisi. He does not have the really powerful rush deck that we've been seeing out of a lot of Aztec players, and one that would actually be really hard for Dutch to counter. But as we know from Kanisi, he tends to like boomy builds more than those quick rushes. So probably going to go for something age 3 based, probably another warrior priest boom. Has the 600 infinite coin in his deck. Very interesting. And meanwhile, Bob Enjoyer already has his 15 vills queued up, clicked up to the second age, gathering his other 100 wood, second herd coming in, all excellent Dutch stuff. Let's see, has military reforms, interesting card. And everything else is pretty standard here. No 8 pike, interestingly. So maybe he knows that going against Kanisi, he's not going to deal with early pressure. Has advanced arsenal, some age 3 cards. Ooh, advanced artillery. I've actually been thinking of adding this one myself. Of course, gives you that early mortar and now allows those to be trainable. Otherwise, very standard stuff. Going to have his wood quite a bit earlier than his food, but is going to be shifting on to coin. Hopefully no idle time for him. Meanwhile, Kanisi also aging up to the second age with a 20 population age up. Very good for him. Sent 3 villagers of his own. And we'll see what he's going up with here. Not the fast age up, going up with the Elder and picking up 70 coins. So some really juicy treasures around the map. Meanwhile, Peter Brunel still down, and yeah, he's definitely going to lack that early scouting, which is crucial for Dutch. I feel like if you want to be, a high-quality Dutch player, which I certainly am not, you have to be so good at your scouting because you are the reactive civ. You have to know what the other opponent is doing. But look at this, he did not age up with the quartermaster. What? The most standard, the most normal Dutch age up has been bypassed in exchange for the military wagon and the halberdier, and now Bob Enjoyer can train veteran halbs in age 2, which is just going to be probably very unexpected. And if he lines those up with some skirmishers as well. Could put on some early pressure for Kinesi, who is getting some fishing boats out as well. And 700 wood coming in for Bob Enjoyer. Meanwhile, more fishing boats for Kinesi as 2 shipments stacked up, sending the coin and the warrior priest. So could be seeing an FF here. Is definitely macroing the food for a quick age up, which, you know, if the pressure does not come in time here for Bob Enjoyer, of course, he did sacrifice the economy of the 400 wood, that second bake really early. So he'll have to make some of this pressure actually pay off. Otherwise, it might fall a little flat. But I mean, Halberdier and Skirm is such a strong age 2 composition for Dutch. And I think it's one that people don't utilize enough, mainly because Quartermaster is just so ingrained in the Dutch meta. But, you know, the thing about anti-cav for Dutch in Age 2 is that they can't really train it efficiently because they don't have any muskets, and the pikes cost wood and food as opposed to all your other things, even your villagers costing gold and a little bit of food as well. But the Halberdiers really kind of negate a lot of that. And meanwhile, 700 wood and the bank wagon coming in, currently only at 2 banks at the 6-minute mark, though does have a market. Hunting dogs now coming in, Skirm's being trained as well as the 3 warrior priests arrive for Kinesi. And what will his 4th shipment be? Let us see, ladies and gentlemen. 5 bills maybe? 700 wood? Come on, Kinesi. Is he saving it? Maybe he's saving it for Age 3, ladies and gentlemen. He is already clicked up at the 6-minute 30 mark. A very quick timing. And meanwhile, no pressure coming in from Bob Enjoyer yet. He does have a decent army here. I don't know if he was expecting some sort of aggression from Kinesi. But as we said earlier, that's really just not Kinesi's style. I have not seen Kinesi do a lot of rushes. Even back in the Legacy days when he was known as a really big waller, and he played a lot of Japan and Portugal. Even then, he really didn't do a lot of aggressive builds. But 4 villager coming out now for Dutch, that's not a shipment you see a ton. Usually you see the 700 coin or the 600 wood, or even, you know, something like 8 pike, 3 hussar if you're getting pressured. But out comes the Dutch army, 10 skirms and a handful of veteran halbs. And I don't know how effective this is going to be. It is coming pretty late, the 7-minute 15 mark, making its way across the map. There is a war hut now down for Aztec. And let's take a look at the villagers. 25 for Dutch, 28 for Aztec. Meanwhile, looks like 1,000 wood coming in. Why do you need 700 wood when you can just send 1,000? He's still got his 8 vil and his 5 vil, so we could see a huge economic leap. But there's a lot of siege potential in this army. These halbs pack a wallop, a whopping 36 siege attack, and down go the Jaguar Prowler Knights. They come in pretty much at the exact wrong time, but now in cover mode. I think Kinesi's going to lose this war hut, and yeah, just such good damage here from the Halberdiers. Out come the Entente Slingers. These do not have the elite upgrade as of yet, and now that the Halberdiers are on them, these guys will fold like tissue paper, and with more halbs coming out, even picking up that hurting vil. And this has been a decent amount of pressure here from Bob Enjoyer. Let's see how well he's macroing for Age 3 himself. Not close to getting to Age 3, sending 3 Huss and making more skirms, so he might be keeping up this pressure. Kinesi once again falling back on the warriors like we saw him do versus Lakota. But the skirms and the halbs pretty much ignoring him, and that war hut is going to go down. An emergency one coming in the back, but a good pickup there for Bob Enjoyer. But now that his skirmisher mass has been depleted, he's definitely going to pull back and probably make a second push with the 3 hussar and some reinforcing skirmishers. And I love this. You know, people tend to think that Dutch can't be aggressive. They can. It's not in their playstyle. It's not their instinct. But, you know, they have the units. They have the composition to be aggressive in the hands of the right player. And Bob Enjoyer, certainly one of those players, very good with Dutch, which makes me think he might be a legacy player. I don't know. You know, you just don't see a lot of newer guys picking up Dutch and playing them almost exclusively. So another town center going down for Kinesi here. The boom has been slowed down, but it has not been halted. And now that he's got access to some really powerful Age 3 shipments as well as Age 3 upgrades, we could see the Aztec snowball begin. Warriors and the 13 Ententes coming out, and these Age 2 skirmishers will now no longer be able to compete though the Automaton Slingers still do not have the elite upgrade. Needs to get that in as soon as possible. And now with Hussars, Kinesi once again pushing out without anti-cav. This is what lost him the match last game, though he is not dealing with nearly as scary a massive anti-cav. No Takala soldiers coming out from Bob Enjoyer. Wow, that's a lot of villagers queued up for Kinesi. And yeah, I guess he wants to make sure he can focus on his micro and not focus on villagers. But skirmisher upgrade coming in. I love the upgrade cards. I love it. You know, those late H3 games, you have 3 card skirms with the veterancy upgrade. They just turn into absolute monsters. But I really think Bob Enjoyer needs to start macroing here for H3. I don't think he can play this game out in H2 for much longer. I think eventually Aztec is going to start power scaling. He now has 36 villagers. He could still send 8 vil and 5 vil. So, you know, Aztec has the potential to really start snowballing. And yes, he does have him a little bit cooped up in his base, but the water opportunity for Kinesi means that his food economy will never 100% be closed off. But we're seeing the skirmishers still pull quite a bit of weight. The Automatons still don't have their elite upgrade, which is really starting to wear on them. Now just coming in, along with a couple of other upgrades. And out come the 9 Jaguar Prowler Knights. If he can get these in a good position on this ball of skirmishers and away from these halberdiers, he could do a lot of great damage. But Bob Enjoyer being cautious with this army, continuing to poke, continuing to prod, continuing to keep Kinesi as contained as possible. And this is the problem we saw for Kinesi last game. He was not able to branch out of his base, and we'll see if he's able to do it this time. More halberdiers coming out for Bob, and maybe... Yeah, okay, so no more reinforcements coming in as of yet, sending another infantry upgrade card. So these skirmishers are going to pretty much actually be veteran skirmishers at this point now that they have 2 cards on them, but they will be facing off against elite Automaton Slingers, so the fight will be much more even. 35 villagers for Bob Enjoyer and a whopping 43 for Kinesi. The Prowler Knights trying to get on the skirms, but they didn't quite get out of stealth mode in the right position, and Bob now knows they are there and was able to get his skirmisher mass out intact, and they are just doing so well poking in and out. This has got to be so annoying for Kinesi, and just easily picking off these warriors, actually getting quite a bit of easy XP here without it costing him anything. And even though Bob Enjoyer is not in the 3rd age yet, I'm sure he's probably enjoying this trade that he's getting. He's not really taking any significant damage. He's continuing to build up his anti-cav, and he's also keeping Kinesi belled in. So a lot of good things going for Dutch here, but I definitely think he needs to macro for an age up. Certainly looks like he is starting to pile up quite a bit of food and coin. And so I think we're going to be seeing an age up in the next 3-4 minutes. Now bringing in these halberdiers, going to try to snipe off these houses, and he has a big enough mass that he can quite easily do so. But he definitely doesn't want to lose too many of these. Halberdiers, a pretty expensive unit, and will go down quickly to concentrated fire. The Prowler Knights now in stealth again. They're trying to get into a good position, but once again, Bob being so careful with his skirmishers. And I think this is what happens to a lot of beginning Dutch players, including myself. You get a little bit too greedy with your skirms. You get in too far thinking you have the advantage. Then you get hit by shock, or you get hit by heavy cav switches, and you just fall apart. Dutch now sending military reforms, going to increase the speed, but it is going to hamper the attack of the halberdiers just a bit, although it is a pretty worthwhile card, seeing as halberdiers, the main problem with them is that they don't have the speed of cav. They can't get onto infantry like hussars can, but with that upgrade, they can get on, and yeah, you're losing a little bit of damage, but at least you're able to get into melee with your opponent while your skirmishers continue to do damage. 40 vils for Bob Enjoyer, 50 for Kinesi, but we do have to also remember that Bob Enjoyer is now on 1, 2, 3, 4 banks, so about 16 villagers there. So actually, the economy not as lopsided as you might think, might even be in Dutch's favor slightly. What are we seeing now? We saw the Coyotes come out for Kinesi, but then switched it for the upgrade, then switched it for the 8 Vils. And I think he feels like he's secure enough in his base that he can start to continue the boom. And if he can get a solid 15 Vil lead, maybe even a 20 Vil lead if he sends that other one as well, we could see him really start to push out. But he's got to time this right. He's got to time it. He's got to attack Dutch right when Dutch gets to age 3, which Bob Enjoyer now is, but not before, Dutch is really able to use that bank economy and really start rolling. But now these skirmishers, they have so many upgrades, 162 hit points, 30% range resist, 20 range attack, and 20 range. No, not 20 range. What am I thinking? Do they have 20 range? I think they do, yeah. Oh man, that's absolutely insane. But continuing to poke in, starting to get a little bit forward with his villagers here, running low on coin. Well, actually, no. No, he's not running on coin. Maybe he's going to try to take this coin while he has the ability to, and then maybe pull back to his safer mines a little bit later. It's a bit of a risky play, but it actually might work out for Bob if he can continue to control the map for the next 3-4 minutes or however long it takes this silver mine to run out. Certainly not very long with this many villagers on it. And Bob Enjoyer, what has he sent as his age 3 cards? No cards yet. He has sent the bank wagon, both of his skirm upgrades, 4 Vils, and the 3 Huss. And pretty good compositions actually from both players. A lot of Entente and Slingers. And look at these Halberdiers just ripping down this Noble's hut like it's not even an issue. And down it goes, 120 XP. And that is going to immediately be put into another infantry combat card. And something that I failed to realize until now is that is buffing his Halberdiers as well. So it's buffing all of his army, not just his ranged infantry, which I really love. It makes me want to try out this build. I tend to go Skirm Reuter, but I'm starting to think that Skirm Halb is maybe a little more viable in some of these matchups for Dutch where they struggle a little bit against the pressure. Just having that big wave of Halbs to fall back on is really good. But now the Prowler Knights are getting involved. They're chasing after the skirmishers, but they're just fast enough to get away. Entente's trying to pursue them, trying to keep them in the fight. But Dutch, once again, able to just barely slip by. But now the Coyotes coming in. They won't last long against these veteran Halbs. He doesn't want to just waste them. And so, yes, pulling back at the appropriate time. But that was... Bob escaped that by the skin of his teeth. If those Prowler Knights had gotten engaged and the Ententans had picked off the Halberdiers, we could be seeing a very different story. And now we see a Noble's Hut going down. Kinesi starting to take over more and more of the map. The villagers on the coin mine now coming back after having mined about half of it. And Bob is going up to the 4th age. He doesn't have a lot of age 4 cards. He does have the heavy cannons and the 2 factories, which, in some cases is all you need. Those are the 3 almost mandatory cards to have. He has 1 stable, but has not produced anything out of it yet, making caravels, so he has a dock down, getting a little bit of a fish economy going himself, getting the arsenal down as well. So falling back on these resources and just slowly building up, right? He's going to wait for that age 4, and he's just going to allow that, economy and that tech upgrade to really kick in. But Kinesi's certainly not out of this yet. He is at 70 villagers, getting some upgrades himself. He is now sending knight hit points. He has sent a lot of villager cards. Could still send the 5 Vils, though. And has knight attack he could send. He has the infant 900 coin. So there's a lot that Kinesi can do as well. I don't want my Dutch enthusiasm to make you think that Kinesi's already lost this game. He definitely has not. But now with this caravel prowling the seas, his fishing economy is going to be at risk, and he has nothing to defend it currently. And so we'll see if he starts to make some more canoes. Nothing coming out of the dock. And very few units coming out as well, but the walls are going up, the war huts are starting to be produced, and I think Kinesi might also want to sit back and let his economy play to his advantage. Now, he does have a significant villager lead over Bob, but Bob is now going to be in age 4 with factories, with guard upgrades, already slamming down guard skirmishers. Wanted to make sure he had the wood and coin to put that in as soon as he hit up, because the skirmishers are going to be his main weapon against the Ententans. But now that he's got these heavy cannons, those are certainly not going to hurt. And we'll see how long until he gets guard halbs as well, which guard halbs for Dutch. I can't remember the name of the upgrade. A little bit of a coyote raid here. Not going to get a ton accomplished. Going to lose most of those coyotes. But yeah, once he gets the guard halbs, certainly macroing for a lot of wood. And there it is, guard halberdier, the Staatsvaten, which I probably butchered. But very scary Dutch army heading up the map and a very scary Dutch economy behind it. He could still send the Bank of Amsterdam, though I don't think he got his 5th bank down yet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, he does have 5 banks, but no 6th bank yet. Could have the church. Does he have the church? Yes, okay, he does have the church. So, Dutch economy could still grow, but it is starting to reach its limit. And I think this is a good push here by Bob. I think he knows that, you know, eventually Dutch hits a wall. You know, early age 4, late age 3 is really their powerhouse time. But as the game goes, that villager cap really starts to wear on them. And we know how powerful Kinesi's late game Aztec can be. It's beaten Revnak, it's beaten some of the top players in the game currently. So certainly doesn't want to let Kinesi reach that point. Currently at 75 vills is Aztec, going up to age 4 himself. And so Kinesi might just be trying to buy some time here. Heavy cannons want to get involved, but they are going to take out these war huts pretty easily. The guard halberdiers staying back, protecting the cannons. The skirmisher mass for Bob is not huge here. It is only 25 guard skirm. He does need to let his economy recover from all of those upgrades and, of course, the investment to get into age 4. So there is going to be a bit of a soft underbelly for Dutch until he can start getting out reliable reinforcements. Now getting out batches of 10 and sending the factory, and is putting in standing army as well. So a lot of good things happening for Bob Enjoyer. Even 100 XP there for that war chief. Very, very good. Might even get his second factory out quite a bit faster thanks to that. And is now assaulting this Aztec town center. And in comes the Aztec army. Oh, another 100 XP. That's so good. That's so good. More skirmishers. What is Kinesi doing? Oh, the Prowler Knights coming out of stealth. And I don't think guard halberdiers are what they want to attack. Oh, it actually seems pretty even, honestly. These heavy cannons are doing so much damage to these poor Entente slingers who do not have the champion upgrade. They are losing badly to these guard skirmishers who, I will remind you, have 3 upgrade cards stacked on them, and the champion upgrade coming in far too late and doing far too little. The Aztec army gets absolutely clean, but in come the champion Jaguar Prowler Knights, but are not going to engage. And this is looking pretty dire for Kinesi. He does still have the villager lead, now making a ton of champion Ententans. They are going to start being very, very cost efficient. They have that quick attack speed and pretty good damage for their cost, and sending 24 as well. And just like that, the Aztec army is back on its feet. The recovery time for Aztec really is something to behold, honestly. And now we do have Arrow Knights coming out, going to deal with those heavy cannons. And once the heavy cannons are dealt with, I think this fight will actually start to really turn in Kinesi's favor. These guard halberdiers, while scary, while doing a lot of siege damage, won't actually be that effective against the Ententans as long as the Ententans don't let them get close. But now in come the Prowler Knights, and they're keeping the skirmishers occupied, and now these champion Ententans getting in, doing decent damage to the guard halberdiers, but these guys are so tanky, 360 hit points. But I think Kinesi is going to be able to hold it. He took out both heavy cannons, and he still has 77 vills. Did not take a severe hit to his economy. And Bob really can't do a cav switch. He hasn't made any investment into cavalry. Still only has 1 stable, though he does now have 2 factories, both producing heavy cannons. So I think Kinesi's going to want to maintain a decent amount of Arrow Knights. I think he knows that heavy cannons are going to be on the books. But Dutch now completely out of coin on his side of the map. He does have probably, well, he's still at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is there a 6 bank? Yeah, okay, so we are now at 6 banks for Dutch. Advanced Arsenal coming in, and these skirms are just going to start getting scarier and scarier. 216 hit points. Absolutely disgusting. Meanwhile, what is Kinesi doing? Champion Ententans still coming out. And he's basically spamming Champion Ententans at this point. A couple of Eagle Runner Knights as well. But I think he's just going to try to beat Bob by pure spam. And honestly, with Aztec, that actually tends to work out pretty well. But we'll see what happens here. Is Bob going to continue to try to use the superior range? Definitely could use it in his favor. This War Chief continuing to be annoying, soaking up a lot of damage, and it allows those Ententans to get in close where they will trade more efficiently with those skirmishers. But oh, now the heavy cannon also involved and immediately pulls back, which allows these skirmishers to do a lot of free damage. But more Ententans coming out, very, very cheap, very, very spammable for Kinesi. Kinesi has an excellent economy, already shifting into farms, has not completed the transition yet, but once he does, he can basically make units with impunity. Losing a couple of Arrow Knights for free there. Another heavy cannon coming out for Dutch, and looking pretty good for Bob Enjoyer. He's started to take more of the map. He does still have a very good economy. Basically been untouched this entire game. 52 villagers, max bank population. Continuing to double produce skirm. And now with all of these guard halbs and seeing Kinesi go pure Ententan, I think we're just going to see pure light infantry from both players. And we're just going to see who can make more, which at this point, with the banks, I think the answer will probably be Dutch, but we'll have to see. More Champion Ententans. I don't know how many times I'm going to say that, but I mean, that's the unit. That's Kinesi's unit, and he knows how to use it, man. He's good with it. Starting to run out of infrastructure, though, and starting to run out of room on the map. I mean, look at how congested this back of his base is starting to get. And the more and more the Dutch army pushes, the closer they are getting to the cookie jar. And while he has not taken an economic hit yet, if the Dutch army pushes any further, he could start to lose a lot of villagers. Yeah, these halberdiers now realizing that Kinesi cannot defend this northern part of his economy and maybe going to try to assault it, but every time they move, the Champion Ententans move in as well. And look at the amount of Arrow Knights Kinesi now has. That is enough Arrow Knights to easily take out those heavy cannons. And this is actually a really, really good engagement for Kinesi, but he cannot let these halberdiers get onto his Ententans. They do have that extra speed. More heavy cannons coming in, easily going down to the Arrow Knights. Such an effective unit. Oh, now he's putting the he's putting the guard halberdiers on cover mode. That's absolutely disgusting. And look at how much damage they soak. Man, cover mode. I don't know how I feel about it. Sometimes I think we shouldn't have it, and then other times I think, you know, it's a really nice tool for high-level players to use. But more Ententans coming out, but the batches are getting smaller for Kinesi. The pool of resources is starting to get pretty shallow, and he's starting to run out of cards to send that would have significant impact. He's got Great Chinapa, he's got Night Combat. Neither would be super relevant in this current game, and with the skirmishers able to handle this mass by themselves, the halberdiers basically have free impunity to run all over the map and just siege whatever they want. Now the War Chief once again giving him 100 XP, and I swear Bob's had at least like what, 700-800 XP from killing that War Chief. That's 2 shipments. That's 2 shipments just from killing that Explorer. Absolute insanity. More Champion Arrow Knights coming out. But again, these heavy cannons are free. They are spammable for eternity, and with the banks, the skirmishers pretty much are as well, and these batches of 10 continue to pour in. But he's only making them in batches of 10, interesting to note. Meanwhile, Kinesi's been making slingers in batches of 20, so maybe pure mass wins the day here. The skirmisher mass is starting to look a little bit thin. Getting attacked from 2 sides here. Only 1 heavy cannon. And yes, they are free, but they do train very slowly from the factories, and you are missing out on about 10 villagers worth of resources for every factory you have on heavy cannons. Now researching bookkeeping, has mills going up. No estates as of, no, he does have one estate as of now. But I don't know, is Kinesi gonna pull it off? It's possible. I love Kinesi. Usually I want him to win. I'm almost always rooting for him. But in this case, I gotta root for Dutch. Oh, that was a disgusting heavy cannon volley. Coyote's trying to get in, but with the halberdiers and just how buff these skirmishers are, they are not gonna find a lot. And Kinesi just trying to find the unit that will counter this composition from Bob. And it's really, really hard, and these heavy cannons are just ridiculous. Oh my gosh. Arrow Knight's gonna take him down, but at what cost? Oh man, that was pretty brutal. And yes, he will take out the heavy cannons, but going to lose probably all of these Arrow Knights. But with the halberdiers engaged, he could get on these skirmishers with the Coyote runners. They are only elite, they are not champion, and Kinesi is going to call it there. He did have some resources left. He had 89 villagers, but maybe realized that either he was never going to be able to push back this wave of Dutch units, or maybe he just realized that he did not want to get into a 35-minute grind fest after an already 30-minute game. But either way, love seeing a win for my Dutch boys, especially versus Aztec, because with that OP Aztec rush, we do not get a lot of these Ws. So, guys, let's look at this in more detail. Follow me to the post game. All right, ladies and gentlemen, here we are in the post game, and such a close game when we look at the economies here. Just 1,000 resource difference, actually less than 1,000 resources for each side. So very, very equivalent economies, both using their different buffs to put them over the edge, or at least try to put themselves over the edge. And you know, the thing about that game is it really ended on a point where I couldn't tell who had the better economy. Yes, Bob had the longer lasting, you know, buildings that produce and give you trickles, but Kinesi did have a significant villager advantage. So that was a tough call. Let me know in the comments who you think had the better long-term economy. Military, again, this is pretty usual Dutch versus Aztec. Of course, you have the very, very spammable but not quite as durable Aztec units, the Entente slingers, versus you know, the bit more durable but a bit less, you know, a bit less spammable units like the Dutch skirmishers. And just really, really good stuff overall. That was such a close game. If any of those fights from Bob had been sloppy and that shock infantry had been able to get on that skirmisher mass or get on those cannons, that could have easily gone in Kinesi's favor. Easily. And when we look at the military unit counts, I mean, there were a couple of really nasty fights that Aztec took, but the bounce back from Kinesi just shows how awesome of an Aztec player he is, able to endure one huge loss here, another defeat there, but that final defeat at the 30-minute mark, I think he just realized that coming back from that would be too difficult. But guys, I hope you enjoyed seeing my favorite Civ and the best Civ in the game back on the channel. I'll be back with another game next week, but until then, have a great day, have a great life, see you later.